Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Politics Today. I'm your host, Khalid, sitting in for Farhan. Now, Indian aggression has been going on since some time. If we even count the number of days since the Indian side has been progressively and constantly using tactics of aggression by firing across the line of control in different sectors, the number of casualties are increasing day by day, the number of injured are increasing day by day. Even if we count the last 3 days, on Monday, that is today, in the Baro sector, 4 civilians were embraced shahadat, whereas 10 were injured. In retaliation, of course, 6 of the Indian soldiers died on the other side. On Sunday, in the Keel sector, there was also aggression from the Indian side on the line of control. On Saturday, in the Koirata sector, 4 children were killed by firing, indiscriminate firing through the Indian side of the line of control. This has been going on since some time. Not only that, other means have also been used. Over the weekend, there was an Indian submarine that was trying to enter Pakistani waters, and that was thwarted by the Pakistani Navy. And then there was an Indian drone which entered 60 meters into the Pakistani line of control. That was also shot down by the Pakistani army. Now, a lot of aggression, if we see from the Indian side. Pakistani side is holding back deliberately, and they are saying that we will only use our force as a retaliatory measure. But is this the only solution, or is diplomacy sitting down and talking the real solution to issues between India and Pakistan? We will be talking about Pakistan's responses to the Indian aggression on the diplomatic front. We've seen that on the defense front as well. We have 3 very important guests with us. Let me introduce them to you one by one. On my very right is Mr. Rana Ather. You're a senior analyst. Thank you very much, Mr. Ather, to be here. Next to him is Mr. Qamar Cheema. You're a foreign affairs expert. Thank you, sir, to have joined us. Last but not the least, Brigadier Tipu Sultan. You're a defense analyst. Sir, thank you very much also to have joined us. Let's start with you, Rana Ather Saab. Now, we've been seeing this Indian aggression going on and escalating slowly and steadily. And it's not only on the line of control, it's also what has been happening on the naval side, the drone that entered. They are deliberately provoking Pakistan on different fronts, not only on the defense front, but also on the diplomatic front. Now, in your point of view, where are they going?
Well, thank you very much. First of all, I think they are heading towards what they plan. Their plan is to impose a comprehensive limited war on Pakistan. And they are using 3 operational and tactical, the methods. They are, of course, on line of control and international boundary, also continuous firing with heavy weaponry, buffer guns and mortars. At the same time, they are conducting this reconnaissance, which is another component when a country intends to expand its operations. So in a way, it's a pressure tactics that they have launched a drone in area of, I think, in Suckers in the area. And then they have this submarine spotted and, of course, thwarted by Pakistan Navy. So the issue about India is of course, the subject is that what are the diplomatic responses? But the problem is that India, from the start and up to now, they have another plan maybe, because they are not backing off. They have done everything in their capacity to give us an impression that they are out to hurt Pakistani civilians and also attacking and violating international and line of control. And as you know, the UNMOVEC actually have noticed seriously that for the past, all these more than 300 violations are recorded. So in many ways, India is opening up a confrontation for a little bit longer period of time. But we have to see further down that what international responses in this regard is and what India intends to do, because there is a plan in India's, we understand the India strategists and the very hawkish that they are threatening for the nuclear war and attacking us. And
you had the statement by Manohar Parrikar as well.
And defense minister and all these very important responsible people talking about aggression against Pakistan. Is one way is also that they are diverting attention from whatever is at the moment they are brutally killing innocent Kashmiris, almost around 130th day or 29th day of curfew. So they are doing on the two-pronged strategy, one to diverting attention, international and the media attention from the Kashmir issue, and the secondly, engaging Pakistan on a permanent basis on a limited war, testing waters, that whether Pakistan would respond. And of course, the Pakistan army has responded tremendously, remarkably great. They have actually no record of, as our chief of army staff said, that they should be, you know, become a men and accept their casualties in uniform.
And speaking of that, Manohar Parrikar admitted after that statement that 13 Indian soldiers have been killed after the 7 Pakistani soldiers.
Today is 51 actually. So it's around 51 soldiers Indian since our chief of army staff statement. So it, in many ways, it is a very complex debate at the moment whether what India, we understand that India desires on tactical maneuvering and reconnaissance. They want to put under pressure Pakistan armed forces. And of course, Pakistan army is responding excellently.
All right. Well, the Pakistani army is responding excellently, and we can see the proof of that. And they are retaliating. They are not starting it by themselves. It's only a reaction to what the Indian side is doing. And Pakistan has recently given a dossier to the United Nations Military Observer Group as well, detailing all these ceasefire violations. But my question to you, Mr. Qamar, is that India does not recognize the United Nations Military Observer Group after the Shimla Agreement. It says that it does not, for them, does not hold any importance after the signing of the Shimla Agreement. How does Pakistan now, giving this dossier to the UNMOG, convince the world of what is happening when the Indian side is not willing to even hear from them?
I think if we just look at 2-3 levels, that how we have been projecting our case. For instance, in the region, how we have been able enough to propagate our position. We have just seen in shape of cancellation of SAR conference, a very big setback. We failed to present the case because that was the point where we could present the case. We had just had a meeting in OIC where Sataj has represented Pakistan and OIC, and the only country that has talked for Pakistan is Turkey. They have said that we need to send a commission there into Kashmir, so that.
And even when the Turkish president came here, he talked very openly of the Kashmir issue.
And I think the Turkish government and Turkish people are really coming to a long extent to support Pakistan and to support, in fact, the human rights violations in Kashmir. This is we call it as international crisis, humanitarian crisis. It's not just India, Pakistan or Kashmir problem. So I think in OIC, we will have to further push things. In region, we will have to further push things. As far as when you're talking about the UN Military Observer Group, I think the United Nations is the last refuge for anyone. For instance, if I have a problem or any other country have a problem, that's the only forum where we can go and we can present the case. And if while the Prime Minister gave the dossiers there, and we have been continuously communicating to the United Nations about the human rights violations, about what's going on in Kashmir, and since it has not been the word or Muslim community, Muslim world, region is not taking things very seriously. That is the point where we need to adopt a different approach, that how we have to move forward. If the region is not taking things seriously, Muslim world is with us. They have been calling the sessions, but I think there has not been a huge word from the Muslim community, Muslim world that needs to come up for Kashmir and the human rights violations of the Kashmir. We have been with the Saudi Arabia, we have been with all the countries. We're supporting the stance, whatever they're saying. But I think Kashmir is a core issue towards Pakistan. And
since
looking
1947, in fact.
Since 19... And it's not about India and Pakistan, Barsab. It's about the humans who are living there. It's about how the human lives are being lost there. And the world understands the human rights violations, the way the pellet guns were used. So I think we need to adopt a different approach where the region, where the Muslim world, where the West, and where the United Nations need to listen to the perspective, and they need to be very, very receptive to our perspective. And I think we sent a huge number of emissaries for Prime Minister of Pakistan Pakistan to the global capitals.
Exactly.
But I think the message was sent wonderfully, but I think there must come some response. And if the response is not coming, we will have to look at that what further needs to be done for more responses and more positive responses for the humanitarian crisis going in Kashmir.
All right, Brigadier Sultan Saab. Now, you've heard on the diplomatic side, Qamar Saab talking. We've also asked Mr. Rana before that. We have had wars with India in the past. Currently, there is a huge issue of ceasefire violations from the Indian side, which is always mostly initiated by the Indian side at the line of control. There is killing of innocent children. On top of that, they're trying different maneuvers to enter Pakistani side one way or the other, through land or through sea. Now, being a defense expert, sir, what is your reaction to it? We are retaliating for the moment, but how long will we just keep on retaliating? Do you feel there will come a moment when retaliation will change from the Pakistani side?
I think in the interstate relations on the strategic terms and on so-called the balance of forces and opportunities, if you consider, I think India thinks that they are in a position to trouble Pakistan in a long haul. It looks as if they are trying to cause attrition on Pakistan over a longer time. They know for a fact that Pakistan has been sucked into the Afghan war. We had to dispatch sizable forces to FATA to fight terrorism. We have to engage the terrorists in Balochistan and with inland also, because the Indians have admittedly causing trouble. They have admitted that their declared policy officially that they are fanning terrorism in Pakistan and funding them, and they're doing that.
We've had that agent, Mr.
Yeah,
Yadav,
indeed.
as well.
There are certain things that they have declared officially. There are other things that are unfolding, like they opened up the LoC, then the working boundary, they opened up small arms, then the medium arms, and the artillery, and then we went on to violate the international waters rights to states, which is exclusive economic zone. They were found about 45 nautical miles off the coast of Karachi. So I am not surprised at that. What I am surprised at is that Pakistan's response to the Indian threat has not been coordinated as it should have been. I think Pakistan adopted a policy whereby Pakistan was very cautious in dealing with India regarding the terrorism that they are fanning across Pakistan, regarding the arrest of Kulbhushan Yadav, regarding the engagement of Indian embassy here in Islamabad regarding terrorism, regarding their violation of international borders and airspaces and all that through drones. I think Pakistan needs to revisit its policy in many aspects. The two nodal points that I can think of is that I think the coordination, the politico-military coordination has to sharpen a little bit further, and the political will, and I think the think tanks that we have in the armed forces, there are officers and officers who constantly analyze the threat perception, the factors governing out of that, and they are making deductions. Even the NDU can be tasked to brief the government. You look at superpowers of the world, they take input from their departments and they reach a conclusion. There are committees like Foreign Relations Committee, the Defense Committee. We also have the committees over here, but it depends who is briefing them, what is their capability. I think if the NDU can be tasked to analyze things and then have a foreign policy and defense director, it would be more pragmatic. What I think is that on the diplomatic front, given the fact that we now appreciate, which we should have appreciated a little bit earlier, that we are into a long haul of simmering conflicts between India and Pakistan across LoC, across working boundary, maybe airspaces, international borders. They are trying to affect the CPAC and all that. I think they are not letting things off. They see this as an opportunity to trouble Pakistan. They see this as an opportunity because of their acceptability to the international community, and the international community looks the other way. One thing I must tell you is that when we talk of OIC, we talk of other forums, we talk of SARC and all that, we realize that the OIC has not been able to do much about Palestine. They have not spoken in unison on the Palestinian issue. So we don't expect them to speak in unison or effectively regarding Kashmir also. When we talk of diplomatic effort, we generalize things. There is an international media, there are nations, there are other organizations, there is civil society, there is media. I think if you just focus on the United Nations, it's a good forum. I agree with my colleague. But I think the preparation to go into the United Nations is like Turkey and China will always be considering Pakistan in a better way as compared to the other nations, because we have prepared ground with China, we have prepared ground with Turkey. And similarly, I think if you just look at the government's effort of sending various political representatives in the capitals, I think officially it is the Foreign Office which talks to their interlocutors. And it is the Pakistani diplomats are second to none. They are very good, let me tell you. Unless you want to inject Hussain Haqqani in there or Wajid Shamsul Hassan or people like that who have got other agendas. But I think Pakistani diplomats are very capable and they should be used as such. I think that the Prime Minister has kept the Kalamdan of Foreign Ministry to himself. He is too busy. I think he has not been able to give time to that. And I think there should be a proper Foreign Minister, and there should not be a dual authority on Fatmi and Sartaj Aziz Sahab. That is what I think. Well, focusing on international community, let me tell you that it is the focus has to be directional. The focus does not have to be generalized to the General Assembly, to the UNO, to OIC, to European Union, etc. I think if the focus is particular, and if you mark the important capitals of the world like Riyadh, like Paris, like London, like New York or Beijing or Moscow, in the Far East you can engage Malaysia and Indonesia. They listen to you better than other states. And I think if you also concentrate on Iran also a little bit more, because they are our neighbors, I think our effort needs to be particularly in a focused manner, targeted diplomatic effort.
All right.
And that has been missing, I think.
All right, targeted diplomatic effort, directional focus.
Directional focus
is what Brigadier Saab says now, Rana Saab. Now, despite that, the fact remains that we have sent emissaries in different countries of the world, in different capitals, with the attached documents on what has been happening from the Indian side towards Pakistan, the ceasefire violations, what has been happening in Kashmir. Despite that, there is not that strong a reaction from the different world bodies, apart from Turkey and China, and a bit from the United Nations, but not as strong as it should be. How to move further?
I think the reason being is that whereas our diplomats, of course, are very efficient in forwarding our national narrative and our policies, we have a huge issue of Indian influence in the Western capitals and the European Union. Since we have a European Union and we got Brussels, I don't think, respectful disagree with my colleague, that there is no point sending emissaries in each capital. Because when you go and do lobbying or advocacy for your issues in a centralized place, that has a more impact, because you get to engage more people. Only you have to choose the occasion, on which occasion you're going, which may be international meetings, gatherings, where you manage to, on the sidelines, engage them properly and take time. And the second issue about this is the focus. We are focused, and I think we should not undermine the fact that India, with the huge resources and the Western interest in India's strategic depth in Afghanistan and in South Asia overall, in contrast to China and Pakistan, cannot be denied. That comes with the other, bounties for India, that they appreciate India more and they are more receptive to their point of view.
All right.
For us to convey our viewpoint, it is important that we call it international media outreach, and the think tanks work it's important that they have to be neutral. Because if you want to support the military efforts, they cannot be military think tanks supporting military efforts at international forums, because that cancels the credibility. That since, if PTV were supporting their own people and their own everything, then the other your competitor would feel that you're part of that. So what we have to do is, we have to bring down or create or construct a team which with all these people already working. I mean, the politicians have to be on board. Whether their performance is not, they're not very competent or they're not aware of, their capacity can be built, because including academics, politicians, and the retired civil military bureaucrats is a good combination of team. Otherwise, if you send only politicians, they lack that a special field to explain to the other counterpart. But also, we must understand that there is a problem of reception. The receiving end, the Western bureaucrats, the politicians, they have this preemptive understanding of the way they want to launch things in the region. So this must be considered, and it means that we have to work harder in this communication issue, and also conveying, forwarding our international opinions to them.
All right. Forwarding our international opinions to them, says Rana Saab. Now, from the Indian side, you've seen a lot of developments on the international front, whether it be the Indo-US civil nuclear deal, recently the deal with Japan that India has inked, and also the statement by Manohar Parrikar about the nuclear first use by Indian side. Now, it is a provocative statement, says the Foreign Office. Under these circumstances, what, in your point of view, Mr. Cheema, should be the Foreign Office's reaction? It has openly condemned it, but then how should the Foreign Office kind of react to statements such as these, deals on the international front such as these? How should our politicians and our diplomats work forward to counter this?
I think what I was just, before coming the show, I was going for the content analysis of the press release of Pakistan's Foreign Office and Indian Foreign Office, how they have been coming up with the perspectives. I just felt it that Indian press release or Indian spokesperson's speech was, or the press release was more elaborative in every sense as compared to Pakistan's, and that was something I just realized after looking at that. I think where I feel things are not fine is that we are weak in psychological operations, and that is how we have to propagandize our perspective. In fact,
how come you say that we're weak as far as psychological perspective is concerned?
Let me elaborate it. This is what I wanted. What I am saying is that who controls the information matters a lot. And as far as, for instance, we are sitting in South Asia, we have to understand that who really controls the information. Now, how many media channels of Pakistan are operating in Afghanistan, in Sri Lanka, in Bhutan, in Nepal, in Maldives, or India, we have a different position, and how much information going from India to all that regional countries. So I will see that there is a lot of difference as far as the controlling, expanding, giving information. For instance,
well, the Pakistani media is also on the private front expanding.
No, I think I have to a little bit interject, because Bhutan and Maldives and Sri Lanka, we are national TV channel, this one, and our other channel, they are across the world. They are on cable and they are on Sky
And also
News.
the private channels.
The
that
private channels,
propagate
I think they are already so.
Yes,
not
Cheema
about
yes,
the private channel. Everyone has his right to speak. What I will say is that it's not about the.
I have interjected.
What I would say is that yes, the government channels are there. That doesn't mean having government channels means that you can propagate information beautifully. I remember the ISS attack in Bangladesh. That was a few months ago. And what I knew from the social media, or what I understood from the electronic media or the print media that was coming on the social media, we felt that all the information was being fed by the Indian media, and they came to the conclusion before even analyzing and before even realizing what has happened, that it's Pakistan who is doing all that. It is because of the Pakistan. This is one of the case study. I felt it personally. I observed it. I experienced it personally. I observed it. So what I matter is that is what I want is, we have a Kashmir issue. Now, how much we have been active in terms of propagating Kashmir's perspective in the region. Don't
Well,
forget.
we have time and again done that.
Don't forget. We will have to look into our own situation, what we're doing. For instance, the government sent their emissaries around the globe,
yes,
but we didn't send anyone in the region. So that is something.
The United Nations Military Observer Group is
this
there.
This is not the
isn't
question.
it?
This is not the answer for this. The answer is that if we are sending emissaries around the globe to the United Nations, to the Europe, that's fine. But don't forget that the region is important. I remember the region is the pivot for us. If we have to survive in a region, we need to take on board everyone. And for that, I think losing SAARC is one of the important points, and nobody can deny this reality.
All right, Rana Sahab, you wanted to say something.
Well, I have to put some record straight. Of course, it's Mr. Cheema's opinion, and we respect that. The problem is that vis-a-vis sending emissaries, we send envoys to the countries with influence at international forums. That's why we selected Geneva, Washington, London, Paris, and all other countries, and EU. The SAARC issue, actually, since India doesn't want to continue with the SAARC, and the reason being that India wants to, of course, they're controlling, for example, smaller countries, and the smaller countries are absolutely irritated by India's, oppressiveness on their diplomatic front. They're really coercive diplomacy. They twist their arms. Now, let me give you an example of what Mr. Cheema was saying. He's observed it. The new investigation run on the attacks on the Bangladeshis, the young boys who attacked, they are being linked with as for yesterday and today's report, properly report filed against Mr. Naik, Zakir Naik, the famous Islamic scholar.
Yes.
And his offices are raided, and they are being all record taken. And fundamentally, they are saying that it was, one of the documents they found that those young guys were actually studying and interacting with Mr. Naik, and that's why. So the issue about that, the way we propagate, the problem is that with rhetoric and propaganda, because I actually graduated in this area.
All right.
This is my own area. So there we cannot run psychological operations. First of all, because the psychological operations have many, many components. One of the important components is where you have the reality and the evidence.
All right.
Do not go for rhetoric, because the rhetoric and propaganda, people do not listen. So if India is doing something that they are propagating before the attack, that it is done by Pakistan, actually it goes against India. On Samjhota Express, on any other incident, on Pathankot,
all right,
even on Uri attack, everything they said on Samjhota went against them, and Indian courts, Supreme Courts, they actually rather exonerated Pakistan and implicated Indian military intelligence for conducting these operations. So that is important to understand.
All right, Brigadier Saab, rhetoric and propaganda. How much does it propagate information, makes people take one side or the other as far as the news is concerned?
Well, let me tell you that Parekar's statement on first use of nuclear weapons, if it had come from Pakistan or Korea, there would have been a lot of hue and cry in the world.
Definitely. And just because it's coming from India,
that should answer you what is reality, what is propaganda, and where do we stand. I think in strategy, if you don't know what is going to happen to the action that you are going to take, then you better not adopt that method. In the peripheral states or states of the subcontinent, it is understandable that Bhutan or Myanmar or Sri Lanka or Bangladesh will have little to say in favor of Pakistan, because they are being threatened by India on various fronts. Either they are landlocked, or they are militarily threatened, or their economy is dependent on them. We already know what is Indian done to Maldives and all that.
And also to Nepal.
And also to Nepal. So what I think is that we have to rather play on our strength rather than a weakness. Because then if you play on your weakness and further weaken yourself, you will look more weak.
Now, when you say playing on your strength, what do you mean exactly by that?
Well, Pakistan has got a strength. Pakistan is positioned in a manner that it is affecting the traffic in the Arabian Sea. It is placed in a manner where it can have a trade of Central Asia, China through to the waters.
Well, coming to the CPEC, Brigadier Saab, that is also one of the things that is hurting India a lot.
Pakistan is a nuclear power. Pakistan is a frontline state to fight against terrorism. Pakistan is the only state in which the enemy fend terrorism, but Pakistan has controlled it. Pakistan has armed forces amongst those states in which terrorism was unleashed, and there were two premier intelligence agencies of the region and one premier agency of the world operating against the interest of Pakistan. Still Pakistan has survived. Still Pakistan army has welded the country together. The armed forces done well. I think Pakistan has got its strength. Pakistan is an important Muslim country in the world, and we must realize that. We must not, diminish our importance or downplay it. Pakistan is an important country in the world.
That it is.
Indians cannot just get up in the morning and say that we are going to isolate Pakistan and all that stuff. No, it's not that. Pakistan has suffered through two fundamental things. One is a cohesive political will. And the other is that Pakistan has been has had an appeasing policy. I'm not saying that Pakistan should go to war tomorrow, but there is a huge lot of grey area between war and peace. Every strategist understands that grey area has to be exploited.
But
and let me also tell you, the situation vis-a-vis Pakistan and India is such that in the longer run, Pakistan can exploit it to its own advantage. You see, if there is firing across the line of control across Kashmir and people are being killed, it's unfortunate. But it is a news around the world. What's going on over there? There is a conflict zone over here which has got a nuclear underpinnings. World is at a threshold of a dangerous war. The West has spent money in India and their money is threatened. So there are so many things that Pakistan can play on. It's not कि हम बहुत ज़्यादा बेचारे हम बेचारे नहीं हैं. There is a lot that we can do.
No, I'm not saying at all.
Under the circumstances, let me tell you, we keep on criticizing the government of Pakistan, but I think there are certain things which have happened good also. Like we have stopped India from becoming the nuclear suppliers group, getting the membership over there. We have effectively been standing against them to become the member of the Security Council in the UNO. We have effectively denied them their effort to get into the OIC, and we have always stood in front of them on Kashmir issue, though with a consistency that is questionable. But I think Pakistan has not accepted the Indian hegemony and the Indian influence that they seek in the region. And the Indians inadvertently, because of their hatred, because of their Hindu fundamentalism, India stood fully with the Soviet Union in the olden times, yet they said they are non-aligned. India said they are secular. They never were secular. And now that they have thrown up an extremist prime minister, the Indians, how can the Indians say that they are a secular country when they are lynching Muslims, burning them, killing them? Look what they have done to Kashmiris. I think it's time for Pakistan to review its policy in many aspects. And if the Indians, I will go on to say, that if the Indians are not stopping affecting us in Balochistan and FATA and Karachi and all that, and they are funding a particular political party regarding that, there have been a lot of hue and cry and questions on that.
Yes,
there have been scores of people.
Pakistan has raised that
there are scores of people who have been trained in Manila and in South Africa and in India. What stops us from helping Kashmiris?
But we are helping them on a political front, on a moral level or a diplomatic level.
You should help them more than that. More than that. I will always say that. People may have different opinion, but I will always say that you should candidly help them in a more...
Rana Saab, you have something to add?
No, actually, no, I will say it's fine that...
people can debate it day out and day night.
It's your point of view.
That is my opinion. I think you should do it.
No, it's of course opinion which is of course because of the anger and resentment against Indian brutality. which can be justified as an opinion. The problem is Pakistan is a very responsible nation state.
That is true.
And we have come for very long, actually, long way. We have a very long way to come, and we must actually understand that it is the movement Kashmir at the moment and has been, it's all India's doing.
All right.
Because the youth, the Kashmiri, the innocent children, women being murdered and blinded by Indian brutality demonstrates that it is absolutely an indigenous movement which has come because India has 700,000
Indeed, it is
soldiers
an
there.
indigenous movement. There's no
So
doubt that
we
it
do
is an
not,
indigenous movement.
because we are seeking a UN resolution, a self-determination, right of self-determination.
All right.
We want international law to be implemented in Indian occupied Kashmir. So therefore, I would argue that diplomatically, morally, politically, we have the right to support as a party. And then the third party is the Kashmiris. They are suffering at the moment. So we should go at every forum and we continue, because it is not time-bounding conflict. We must not let Kashmiris die, of course. But it is also responsibility of international community to understand that the human rights standard which is set, as said by also in Geneva, the Human Rights Commission, that they will remotely monitor if India does not allow a fact-finding mission into Indian occupied Kashmir. So we are doing fine, and I would say that let's keep it this way. We should not be involving, because we as a responsible country have and had commitment to international law as well. India at the moment violating.
Who's going to
and we will defend our territory.
After the Second World War, there has been such double standards on human rights.
There is no doubt.
Palestinians, Kashmir, Borokabiles, Myanmar,
no, there
everywhere.
is no doubt.
What human rights?
I'm saying there is no doubt. But I'm saying is that let India be responsible. Let ourselves come as a more responsible nation state and explain to the world that, look, what has been happening in Kashmir, we will voice our concerns. We'll go for international support. We convince the international community should convince Indians to stop killing Kashmiris, innocent Kashmiris. Because that is what today's idea is, that we are fighting a war on terror at home, and then cross-border terrorism from Afghanistan, funded, sponsored by India, Balochistan, CPAC, and then threats of the nuclear attack. All these things we are struggling with it, but we are doing an excellent job in terms of our responsibility. India is not.
Yes, because we are being responsible despite being a nuclear state. We are being the
India is not taking its responsibility. Therefore, India doesn't deserve the membership of the Security Council. Therefore, India doesn't deserve to be member of the nuclear supply group, because it has an irresponsible and continuously psychotic approach to solve the regional issues. That is the issue, actually.
All right. Qamar Sahab, last question, very short answer, please. We've seen all that is happening in Balochistan, across the line of control, in Kashmir, in other parts of the country where we've seen that there's involvement from across the border. Now, under all these circumstances, we are doing what we can. Should we be more aggressive in our diplomatic approach? Very short answer.
I think what I will say in the end is that this is the age of complex interdependence. And what matters is that, that how much dependent world is on us. The only reason the world is not speaking for the human rights violations of India in Kashmir is because they feel that we have a huge dependence on India. Either they are taking huge businesses there, there is a trade, there is a trade going just 2 years, just in last 2 years, they have able enough to get $56 billion in FDI in India. So it means that the money is going there. So all what we have to do is that we will have to open new avenues where world is dependent on us, so that our voice is heard properly. Our voice is not heard properly because we have only one thing to say. India is doing this, India is doing that, they are doing. The world is not listening. So let's be something, let's do something, let's have something in which the world really listens us.
All right. Well, our three eminent guests have been saying that.
I'll just add one thing.
All right. Yes.
And
very short, sir. Very short of time.
Is that it's good to be pious, and it's good to be lawful. It's good to be smooth with the nations. But I think in strategy, if it does not work like that, then you have to change it.
No, it's
you
not
have
a
to
strategy.
weigh your
Strategy is
options.
wisdom.
You have to weigh your options.
Strategy
You
is
have
a
to,
wisdom and we have
look
to
at
use that.
what can you do and what different things can you do to convince the world. It is not that the Indians are going to give everything to us on a plate and they will be very nice with us if we are nice to them. You've seen that if you are nice to them, they are even harsher to us. So let's not be that nice to them.
We are not nicer to them. We are responding to their attacks and we will continue to do that.
All right. Well, thank you very much to all three of you guests. You have your point of views. We just hope that all this escalation of violence from the Indian side comes to a logical conclusion where both sides sit together and come to a diplomatic conclusion to all of that. After all conflicts can be resolved through talks. So Khalid bids you farewell from this episode of Politics Today. Inshallah, Farhan will be back tomorrow with another show. Take care of yourselves. Allah Hafiz.